My name is Josh, and I'm not crazy. I'm just a guy who lives in an ordinary house, works in a warehouse, drinks coffee in the morning and watches the news before going to bed. I have no problems with the law, except for the time when I overstayed my parking ticket. But what happened at 3:14 a.m., it had never happened in my life before. And I still can't figure out why I got it. It all started when my girlfriend Linda went to stay with her mother for a week. Her father went to the hospital, heart, or something like that. I don't remember exactly what diagnosis she mentioned. We had been together for almost 3 years, and although things were still sparking between us, we both began to feel that the relationship was approaching the stage where we either had to get married or break up. Perhaps that's why she left, to think. I said I understood. I said I'd wait. And he was left alone. The house we lived in was old but cozy. Brick, 2-story, with a garage and a small garden. It's not a rich neighborhood, but it's not a slum either. Silence, trees, dogs barking at night, ordinary life. We moved here 2 years ago because the prices were reasonable and the neighbors seemed like normal people. However, after moving in, I noticed that most of them keep to themselves. No parties, no "hi, how are you" over the fence. They just walk, stare, and don't say anything. Especially the old woman opposite, Mrs. Riley. She was constantly sitting on the porch in her rocking chair, with a cup of tea and a book on her lap. Sometimes she looked at me, sometimes she didn't. But she always seemed too calm. The first 2 days without Linda were easy. I watched movies, cooked food, even cleaned up a bit. On the third night, I woke up to a strange sound. No creaking of the door, no howling of the wind, no banging of pipes. It was a deep, rhythmic thud. It was as if someone was slowly, carefully tapping the wall with his fist. I checked the house, but nothing. Neither the windows nor the doors were forced. I went back to bed and tried to sleep. The sound stopped. The next night, he returned. At 3:14. Exactly at this time. I went out into the hallway, shone my flashlight, checked every corner. The knock came from the back wall of the house, next to the pantry. There was nothing there except the old boxes and Linda's bike. But at that moment, I felt goosebumps on the back of my neck. Something was wrong. The morning brought me only a question: who could be knocking inside my house if I was alone? I started writing down everything that was happening, just to keep from going crazy. On the first day of recording, it looked like, knock at 3:14. The house is empty. There are no signs of intrusion. On the second day, the phrase was added: I heard footsteps in the attic. The attic is locked. There is no key. On the third, the smell of burnt meat in the basement. The basement is also closed. The windows are closed. No heat sources. I began to be afraid to sleep. I started working late, and I came home tired, but I still couldn't relax. I set up a camera in the hallway, connected it to my laptop, and began recording every night. The video was clean. There was no movement. Just empty walls and shadows. But every time, at 3:14, the camera made a strange click. It was like someone was turning on a microphone. One morning I found a note. She was lying on the kitchen table. The paper was old, yellowish, and covered with large, uneven handwriting. You have to be quiet. They know you're listening. I couldn't figure out who could have written it. I checked all the locks, went around the house again. No one came in. I took a picture of the note, put it in an envelope and hid it in a drawer. But they continued. There were new notes every morning. They were in different places: under the pillow, in the refrigerator, in the toilet tank. At first they were warnings. Then they became threats. If you don't stop, you'll be taken away. Don't open your eyes. You've already chosen your fate. I stopped telling anyone about it. Even friends. I was afraid they'd think I was crazy. But one day I decided to talk to Mrs. Riley. Maybe she knows something about the house, about the previous owners. I went up to her house and knocked. She didn't open it for a long time. I was about to leave when I heard the door creak. "What do you want?" "What is it?" she asked, not coming out of the shadows. I just wanted to ask, "Have you lived here long?" "That's enough," she replied. "Are you new?" "Almost 2 years." "You haven't seen anything yet," she said, and closed the door. I stood there for a few minutes, not knowing what to think. That same night, the note was on the bathroom floor. "Don't tell them. They're watching." And then I realized that this was not a game. This is not a joke. Someone is really watching. But who? And most importantly, why exactly at 3:14? I started checking old records, newspapers, police reports. Nothing. But one day I came across an old photo in a drawer that I had never seen before. He had this house on him. Date on the back, 1987. And the signature. 3 children. 3 voices. Just silence. What does it mean? At 3:14 a.m. the same day, I heard someone whispering in the dark. Josh. 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 3 voices. Male, female, and children's. I didn't move. He wasn't breathing. Josh. We're waiting for you, Josh. We're waiting for you. Those words, whispered in the dark, seemed to burn something inside of me. Not screaming, not panicking, it was worse. It was the realization that I was no longer alone. That someone or something knows my name. And it's talking to me. 3 voices. One of them is a child. I was sitting on the bed with my back to the wall, my knees pulled up to my chest, and my hands were shaking. No windows nearby, no wind, no movement. Just silence and what just happened. I couldn't move. I was afraid to even sigh too loudly. Then I heard a dog barking somewhere far away, outside the house. The usual sound. The real one. Alive. He brought me back to reality. I stood up, slowly, carefully, as if the floor might cave in under me. He went to the door and opened it. The hallway was empty. The camera was still working, but the screen was showing a static picture. The time is 3:16 a.m. 2 minutes have passed. I went to the camera and checked the recording. The last 3 minutes were just black. Total darkness. There was no sound, no movement. Just a click at the very beginning. I closed the laptop lid. There are too many questions, too few answers. I needed to get out of the house. At least for an hour. Just take a ride, turn on the radio, feel that the world outside these walls is still alive. But when I went downstairs, I found that the front door was locked from the inside. It wasn't just locked, the latch was down, the chain was hooked, and the key was stuck in the lock from the inside. I didn't let anyone out. And no one came in. I found a new note in the kitchen. She was lying on the stove, right on top of the burner. The paper was slightly burnt at the edges. Don't go away. We want you to stay. I read it twice. Then a third time. His hands began to shake. I crumpled the paper, threw it in the sink, and turned on the water. I wanted to erase it, as if I destroyed the note, the meaning it carried would disappear. But then I heard the water in the pipes suddenly get louder. It was as if someone had started a stream from above. Although I didn't turn on the faucet upstairs. I went back up to the second floor. The note appeared again. The same one. It was lying on the floor in the hallway, exactly the same as the one I had just washed off. Now I understood, they know I can see them. They know that I'm trying to resist. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch, looked out the window, and waited. Nothing happened until the morning. When the sun began to shine through the curtains, I felt the tension ease a little. I convinced myself that it was all my imagination. That I overworked, got nervous, maybe became too lonely after Linda left. Maybe I should just leave. Spend the night at a motel. Get enough sleep. Come back home when it gets easier. But when I packed my bag, I noticed that all my things had become different. My shirts are not the ones I usually wear. There was blood on one of them. Small spots, almost imperceptible, but I saw them. I dumped all the clothes on the floor, examined every item. One pair of socks was stained with what looked like dirt. Not ordinary dust, but dirt. It's like I was walking somewhere at night and I don't remember it. The mobile phone was showing the latest messages from Linda. The most recent ones were a week ago. And then, nothing. I tried to dial her. The call went to voicemail. I sent a text, "I'm sorry I didn't write." Simply, "It's been a strange week. See you soon." It's gone. The read icon did not appear. The next morning, the note was on the refrigerator. It is attached by a magnet. "She's not coming back." The words cut into my head like a knife. I didn't want to believe it. But then why doesn't she answer? Why aren't there any calls? I started frantically going through my call history. The last call from her was made 2 days before her departure. After that, silence. I got in the car and drove to Linda's mother's house. The house was outside the city, about 2 hours away. I've never been there before. Her parents lived in an old wooden house surrounded by tall trees. I parked, got out, knocked on the door. No one answered. I knocked again. Then I heard footsteps inside. The door swung open. There was a woman standing in front of me. But it wasn't Linda's mother. "What do you want?" "What is it?" she asked. I'm a friend of Linda's." I wanted to know how she was doing. The woman looked at me as if I had lost my mind. "Linda's not here. Her family left a year ago. But she said her father was sick. No one has lived here for a long time. She slammed the door in my face. I went back to the car, my heart was beating too fast. What's happening? Where's Linda? What kind of notes? Why can't I leave? When I got home, I found an old toolbox in the garage. Inside was a key that I had never seen before. There was an inscription on it, basement. I knew we had a basement, but the door was always locked. Linda said she lost the key. I had him now. I went downstairs. The air was musty and smelled damp. There was no light, just a flashlight on my phone. The walls are covered with mold. There was an old mattress in the corner. Dirty. Stained. There are children's shoes nearby. Small. Is it a girl or a boy? I don't know. On the wall, written in white paint, there was one word. Don't go away. Below it is the number, 314. I felt my legs begin to buckle. I stood in the basement, looked at that word, don't leave, and couldn't move. The light of the flashlight trembled in my hand, casting long shadows on the walls. It seemed like every crack in the concrete was staring at me. I knew I had to leave, go back upstairs, lock that door, and never come down here again. But I couldn't. Something was holding me down there, among the mold, dust, and old mattress. As I got closer to the inscription, I ran my hand along the cold wall. The letters were fresh, and the paint still clung to my fingers a little. This was done not so long ago. By whom? Did Linda really know about this place? Why was she hiding the key? There was a small torn bear cub next to the children's shoes. His eyes were gouged out. One was half protruding, the other was missing altogether. The bear cub was covered in spots that I didn't want to recognize as blood, but they smelled too strongly of iron. I kicked him away, and he hit the wall, bounced off, and fell face down. There was another note on the floor next to the mattress. It was crushed under a brick, as if it had been specially left for me. The paper was rotten in places, but the text was legible. You're already here. You've always been here. You just don't remember. We've been waiting for you for a long time. You're not leaving now. It became difficult for me to breathe. The air in the basement seemed thick and sticky. I started to choke. He ran upstairs, barely able to stand, grabbing the railing. The door slammed shut behind me. Or did I close it myself? I'm not sure. My whole body was shaking. I dialed Linda's number again. Beeps. Silence. Voicemail. I sent a message. Linda, where are you? What's happening? I found the basement. I found the notes. Please answer me. But there was no answer. The next morning, the note was on the bathroom mirror, attached with a toothbrush and razor. You shouldn't have seen this. You're part of it now. I tore it off, tore it into small pieces, and threw it in the trash. Then he took the trash out of the house, as if that could make a difference. But in the evening of the same day, I heard someone fumbling behind the back door. I crept up, taking a knife from the table. He approached cautiously, holding his breath. The door handle twitched slightly. I opened the door. No. Only the wind stirred the trees. But there was an envelope on the porch. There's a photo inside. I was on it. Sleep. In my room. The picture was taken recently. There is a clock face in the background. 3:14. I almost dropped the photo. My own face, my own breath in the picture. I could feel my head starting to hurt. It was like everything was pressing on me at once. Someone is watching. Someone lives in me. Or inside the house. I decided to check on the neighbors. Maybe someone knows something about the previous tenants? Is there a story that I just don't know? I went to Mrs. Riley's first. The same door, the same steps inside. She opened it, but now she had a mug with something hot in her hands. What do you need this time? What is it? She asked, not particularly surprised. Do you know anything about the basement in my house? She looked at me for a long moment. Then she slowly put the mug on the windowsill and closed the door. Without words. I stood there for at least 10 minutes. I waited for her to open it again, to say something. But the door remained closed. Then I went to another neighbor. A guy named Eric, who lived 2 yards away. He worked at a service station, and we sometimes said hello. He opened it quickly. Hey, Josh. What happened? I need to know something. About my house. Does he have a story? He hesitated. He looked over his shoulder, then back at me. Look, I don't want to get into this. But if you really want to know, start with the police. They know about it. The police? What do you mean? Just be careful. Especially after 3:14. He closed the door before I could ask another question. I returned home and started looking for information. Police reports, archival records, old newspapers. I found almost nothing. But one day, while watching a microfilm in the library, I came across a note. The police are investigating the disappearance of 3 children. Ages 6, 9, and 12 years old. They disappeared without a trace. The last place of residence is a private house on the outskirts of the city. The date is 1987. The photo of the house was the same as mine. I felt bile rising in my throat. I understood what this entry meant. 3 children. 3 voices. Just silence. It wasn't just a house. This was the place where they lived. Where they were hidden. Where they were found, or not. I returned home. At 3:14 a.m., I heard voices again. Josh, we're here. We've always been here. 3 voices. One of them is a child. The next morning, I woke up in the basement. My hands were tied with rope. The mouth is taped shut. I woke up in the basement. Link. Taped up. My body was numb, and my head ached, as if I hadn't moved for hours. The air was heavy, smelling of dampness and something else, metal, blood, fear. There was no light. Only a faint glow from the cracks in the ceiling, where the garage door barely let in the morning light. I tried to move, but the ropes were stretched tight around my wrists. My legs were tied up too. I was lying on that very mattress. Dirty. Spotted. There was a rustle somewhere nearby. It wasn't the creaking of floorboards or footsteps, it was the sound of clothes hitting the wall. Someone was here. Alive. Human. Linda. I croaked through the duct tape. The voice was muffled, strangled. Silence. Then a whisper. You're a part of us now. It was a woman's voice. Close. Familiar. Linda. But why did she sound like someone forced her to? The door above opened. The light hit my eyes. I squeezed my eyes shut. Someone came downstairs. Gradually. Several pairs of legs. More than one person. When I opened my eyes again, there were 3 people standing in front of me. The first is Linda. Her face was pale, her gaze blank. There are bruises on his hands. She looked at me, but she didn't recognize me. Or she pretended she didn't know. The second is a man in his 40s. Dirty t-shirt, old jeans. He was holding a piece of wire and scissors in his hands. His eyes were red, as if he hadn't slept in days. The third is a girl. About 10 years old. Maybe less. She was standing a little behind, holding onto the man's leg. Her hair was matted, and her face was dirty. But what scared me the most was the way she looked at me. Without fear. Without sympathy. It was like I was just a part of something bigger. The man came up to me, sat down next to me and started cutting the rope. One note after another. I didn't resist. Could not. Even if I were free, where would I go? The door at the top was the only way out. And there might be more people there. When the ropes fell, I sat up, rubbing my wrists. His mouth was still taped shut. Why are you doing this? I whispered again. The man looked at me. His voice was hoarse, almost inaudible. We can't leave. He pointed at the girl. She was found in 1987. Disappeared without a trace. The police searched, but found nothing. We hid her here. He pointed at Linda. Her family is gone. We knew she would come here. We waited. I looked at Linda. She wasn't crying. She didn't resist. She just stood there. And you? I asked the man. He chuckled. I was the first. I built this house. I created this place. So that no one leaves. He got up, went to the wall and ran his hand over the inscription, "Don't leave." This is not a warning. It's a promise. The girl came closer. She held out her hand to me. You're one of us now. I looked at them. For all 3 of them. They weren't crazy. They weren't demons. These were the people who couldn't leave. People who lost themselves in this house. And now I was one of them. That evening, I heard someone talking in the house. Footsteps. Laughter. Sometimes there are screams. I realized that we weren't alone. Even more people. Hidden ones. The forgotten ones. I stayed. I became a part of it. And every night, at 3:14, I repeat the same thing. Josh. 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 3 voices. One remains mine.